Alright, we're going to be going over how we solve quadratic equations without the quadratic formula. We can do this using only square roots sometimes. The easiest example of this is when we just have an x squared term. So we have x squared is equal to 25, or your teacher might give this to you as x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. We can plug all this into the quadratic equation. We can factor this, but a lot of the time, the easiest way to do this is just by realizing that if we take x squared equals 25, and we take the square root of both sides, what we get is that x is equal to plus or minus 5. Now this plus or minus is very important because if you notice, negative 5 or 5 would satisfy our original equation. If we do 5 squared equals 25, that's all good. But also, if we do negative 5 squared equals 25, it ends up working as well. So it's important to note that if we have x squared and we take the square root of it, the answer is plus or minus. Another example that we can go over is when you have something a little more complicated. If we have x minus 3 squared is equal to 49, we could expand this and develop it and then use the quadratic equation to solve for it. But a trick that's much easier is we can just take the square root of both sides. So if we square root this and we square root this, we get that x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 7. So what this means is that we actually have two possible answers that we need to treat as two separate cases. One where x minus 3 is equal to 7, and the other where x minus 3 is equal to negative 7. Now, when we add 3 to both sides in this one, we get x equals 10, and when we add 3 to both sides, we get x is equal to negative 4. Now, both of these values will fulfill our original equation, but because we square rooted something that was already squared, we end up with plus or minus. One last example that we'll do here, a little bit easier. If you have 2x squared is equal to 18, we could try to square root both sides here, but what we're going to end up with is the square root of 2x squared is equal to the square root of 18. This is a little complicated. Before we take the square root of anything, it's easiest to divide and end up with just x squared on one side. So if we divide both sides by 2, we get x squared is equal to 9. Then, when we take the square root of both sides, we get x is equal to plus or minus 3. So x is 3 and x is negative 3. And that's how you solve equations without using the quadratic formula in this specific case.